If you have not subscribed to YouTube channel, do it right now. Do it today. And all you have to do is
Hey, everybody, welcome. Here we go. Happy Monday. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. And it is a beautiful day in Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester, streaming at WMNHradio.org. And on the Facebook, on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And, of course, you can go to my website, mattconnerton.com, for all of your live streaming options, social media links, contact info, show archives, etc., etc. Hello to our friends at Raw Talk Online. And today is Monday, August 2, 2021. So welcome, everybody. And we have much to discuss today. Before we get rolling, I want to remind you, of course, that we are proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot. Don't go there today. Monday and Tuesday is their weekend, but they are right across the street in the Brady Sullivan at 1000 Elm Street. They have a delicious gourmet pretzels. They have craft beer. They have wine. They have trivia night every Thursday night hosted by the great Bill Cini, who also does trivia on the morning show on Wednesdays. They have Friday nights. Our friend Grant Lampton plays there. Live from 7 to 9 p.m. They have Sunday brunch. So much going on there. They have the Gender Blender events. They do a lot in the community. So it's such a wonderful place. Not only great food, great service, but such a great family that owns and operates the Hop Knot. And we love them all so much. Like I said, they're closed today and tomorrow. It is their weekend, but they'll be open Wednesday. So make sure you swing by. And thank you all for continuing to support our wonderful sponsor. Let me give you the numbers first. Today on the show, you can call us at 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. You can also text me at 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. And I got a baffling email I'm going to share with y'all today. But the best thing to do so that you can hear and enjoy, so that we can hear and enjoy your dulcet tones, is give us a call at 603-250-6007. By the way, I did share out to the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page, and you may have seen it. I just want to make sure. Let me pull this up quickly on my phone here. I just want to make sure I have this right. So the program showed up. You know, Chris James from Not Even a Show, one of my absolute all-time favorite Canadians, used to call us on a regular basis. Used to call this program on a regular basis, and then we would show up on in his program. And then we kind of, we started hearing from him less and less once we became friends with him, because it wasn't as fun to prank us once we were friends, although he would still call occasionally or even prank us, but in a very friendly way. And then we stopped hearing from him altogether, and I think it's because, we won't get into that, but then... Which, by the way, does bum me out, because I love Chris, and I'm still a big fan of Not Even a Show. I'm still a patron. I pay the $5 a month for his Patreon because I enjoy his content and I support what he does. So then we showed up, though, in a show that I believe is affiliated with Not Even a Show. And I did share it out on the Unleashed page. So... the YouTuber is, sorry, I'm waiting for it to load here. For some reason, it's slow connection today. But if you want to check him out, Leary Films. And like I said, he seems to be associated with Not Even a Show. And but we're in this episode, JJ snaps at shirts plus Obama and Reagan call. So JJ McCartney, who I think is, I think I mentioned, I referenced him the other day, but I think I said McCarthy. JJ McCartney has been a frequent target of Chris James and Not Even a Show. But now apparently the mantle has been passed to this YouTuber, Leary Films. And so the show is all about JJ, except for, and prank calls into JJ's show, except for about 1 minute in, there is a seemingly completely out of context reference to this program and a brief clip of this program from the other day, a day last week, where we received 3 prank calls in a row, sounding like 3 different people as Macho Man Randy Savage, who is my all-time favorite wrestler. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. But that shows up in this show. So the plot thickens. I'll tell you that. And completely unrelated, I'm sure, but that Brandon from Portland, he does remind me of someone. Anyway. So I thought I'd mention that. So that is something kind of fun. You know, I like fun things. I know some people don't like, and we'll get to this. I know some people apparently don't like when I talk about things that aren't directly related to politics. And, you know, certain individuals, they hear me talk about something not directly related to politics, and then they go, oh, Matt never talks about politics at all even though that's the vast majority of what we do. But we'll get to that. And the email that I received, which, again, it just, boy, talk about a head scratcher. Anyway, but, yeah, so that was something kind of fun. But, yes, give us a call, 603-250-6007. Eric Street is asking in the chat, what day were the prank calls? The Macho Man calls, I think, were either Thursday or Friday. It's hard to keep track. You know, I'm very friendly. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you know, I'm very friendly to prank calls, as long as, you know, they're creative and fun and funny. You know, of course, the only thing that disappoints me is if someone calls and they swear, because then I have to hit the dump button. You know, we are on an 8-second delay. I have to hit the dump, and then I have to hang up on them. And that kind of ruins the whole thing. But I've always been very open and receptive to prank calls. That's how Chris James and I became friends. I think, you know, he started calling the show. Well, first he started calling the show, and I think he misunderstood and where I was coming from politically. I think he thought I was a conservative. Because in the very first episode of Not Even a Show where we showed up, he actually referred to me as a right-wing shock jock. But then later he realized he took me wrong. I don't know what it was about me that confused him initially. Maybe he heard me talking about guns, an issue where I do tend to be kind of conservative, but I don't know what it was. But anyway, when he realized I was not a conservative, we became friends. But I've always been, I like prank calls as long as they're fun. I'm like, yeah, let's play, let's have fun. I mean, this isn't NPR, so it's not like I have to keep everything super serious. And if you're a regular listener, you know. Sometimes we're serious. Sometimes we're very serious, and we have very intense and serious and sober political discussions. But we also take some side streets and have some fun and do some humor and so forth too. Or occasionally we'll have musicians on, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I know there's certain individuals out there who, you know, if we ever take a side street or an alley, they go, oh my God, why doesn't Matt Connarton talk about politics anymore? Even though right from the very beginning of this show, it's always been a mix of various things. Again, we'll get to the email that I received, but you know, it's always been, you know, a mix of politics and music and humor and satire and all of it. Politics being the nucleus of the show. But we do have these other things that happen that I think are fun and I think make this show unique. I honestly don't think there's anything quite like this show in terms of political talk. I don't think there's anything quite like this show on terrestrial radio. I'm sure there's probably, because there's a whole ocean of podcasts out there, there's probably 1,000 different podcasts that are exactly like this show. But on terrestrial radio, I don't think there's anything quite like what we do here. So I take a lot of pride in it, even if other people don't get it. And trust me, there are people who don't get it. Anyway, let's say hello to everybody in the Facebook live chat. I see Melanie La Liberty is in the chat room and says, hello all. By the way, our sponsor at the Hop Knot, I just want to say this for the record, for, the naysayers, our sponsors at the Hop Knot love what we do here, and they're big supporters of what we do here. And actually, I've had conversations with Kenny about how, he really appreciates that we do not only politics, but that we do other things, that we have musicians on, and that we sometimes we get into humorous things, and we have these colorful characters that appear on the show sometimes, and, Easy G's entertainment report and things like that are not political, and then we mix it up. I get a lot of positive feedback on but apparently not everyone appreciates that. I understand. Some people look askew at that, but we'll get to that. DJ Midas is in the chat room. Midas is a top fan and says hi there. Midas, of course, part of the WMNH family. He is the host of Late Night Delight, which you can hear every Saturday night from 12 midnight all the way to 4 a.m. with a replay on Sunday night if you miss it. Midas does a fantastic job. Miriam Banish is in the chat room. Miriam is a top fan and says, good afternoon. Dirk Don from Arrogant Media joins us in the chat and says, Matt's too strong. He must be leashed. Well, you can try, but Dirk, by the way, had posted something. This is regarding here. We'll take a quick sidebar and just a little quick Crazy Joe update. Crazy Joe he has not yet been banned from Twitter. Actually, I won't go through the whole thing, but Crazy Joe has not yet been banned from Twitter. He has been live streaming on Twitter. He manages to burn every social media bridge that he can, but he has been saying on Twitter, he's actually backed off a little bit on attacking me. He still references me, but he doesn't seem to be as obsessed with attacking me. But he has been attacking Dirk Don for the videos, the two videos that Dirk has made, one in particular that he has made about Crazy Joe. And Dirk is now interested in trying to set up, if he can. I don't know if Crazy Joe will even go for it. But, Crazy Joe has been threatening to sue Dirk and whatnot, even though he has no case. Apparently, Crazy Joe doesn't think that others are allowed to criticize him online. But, of course, any one of us is open to criticism. Just, I'm open to criticism. Anybody who works in any sort of media, broadcasting, podcasting, etc., we're all open to that, right? And as long as you don't libel or slander anybody, which Dirk has absolutely not done. Dirk has used Crazy Joe's own content to expose Crazy Joe for who he is and the bigotry and all that. But Dirk is interested in perhaps having an online discussion with Crazy Joe with a moderator involved. And I think that would be very interesting. I'm skeptical that Crazy Joe will agree to do it. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's Christian. I have one question.
Yes.
One question.
Yes, Christian.
Why are we still putting the time of day into this man?
Well, it's funny. It's like he never quite goes away. Crazy Joe is like, I'm beginning to think, Christian, because every time I think he's burned his last social media bridge, he finds a way to still be around. I'm convinced that if there was a nuclear war, the two things left would be cockroaches and Crazy Joe. I really believe that.
100%.
Yeah.
Dude always manages to weasel his way into something. But the thing is, all right, and I haven't told Don this yet either, all right, but thing is with this, look at his numbers. He doesn't have he doesn't have viewers, he doesn't have an audience, okay? He doesn't pull more than 3 views a video, all right? And the last time we tried to have him on for something, what did he do? He made a complete and utter fool of himself. Why put the time of day into something that's not going to benefit you? And honestly, it's not going to help you,
Well, I think that the reason Dirk is particularly interested in doing this is Crazy Joe, in his videos, he's been threatening to sue Dirk definition of character. And
We've heard that one before from him. Just like he
yes.
called the police on me for what?
That
For posting about him?
Yes. So I think Dirk is interested in having a direct dialogue with Crazy Joe about this that is moderated so that they can sort of confront each other. I think it actually would be interesting. But I take your point, Christian, about what you said about, we did try to do something like that before on the Charles Richardson show, where I went on to the Charles Richardson show and Crazy Joe called in, and Crazy Joe just rambled and kind of talked over everybody, and I barely got a word in. Not that I particularly minded. I didn't mind actually just kind of sitting back and letting Crazy Joe bury himself and put his crazy on full display. But yeah, so I don't know if Crazy Joe will even go for it. I think he'll probably not be keen to the idea of doing this with Dirk Don, but I would like to see it.
I hope he's not.
Well,
I think because it's going to come back and it's going to bite someone in the rear end, and it could be Dirk Don, it could be Joe, it could be anybody. It's like,
well, why would it bite?
I don't know, but like
Dirk in the rear end.
First off, who would have thought he would have called the police on me? For what? Poking fun at him because he's a comedian, as he told the police. It's like,
well,
at what point does it get to be too much with this guy, and do we just let him do his thing? He'll die. His rhetoric will die off, and he'll stop doing what he does.
Well, eventually he'll get banned from Twitter. But he did say in a recent video, in his most recent video, because I happened to get a notification that he was live, so I checked it out. He has an IT professional who's charging him $40 an hour to help him with his website, so he'll be able to stream live, and he's going live from his website on Friday night. Now, I'm not a betting man, but I'm assuming none of that is actually going to happen. But that's what he's claiming.
First off, if you can't find an XLR cord to plug into your mic for a photo, what makes you think you can afford $40 an hour?
Right. Yes. But once he gets banned from Twitter, where does he go? I don't think there's anything left.
I have no idea. I don't know if his TikTok account is still active or not. I haven't looked at that.
No, that got taken down. He was.
It did get taken down. Okay.
Yeah, he was going on TikTok and saying racist things. So everyone reported him, and he got deplatformed from TikTok.
That's the last place you want to go do something, because they'll ban you so quick.
Oh, Dirk says in the chat, he says, I have been reporting him on Twitter. Yeah, and I know
I've reported him on TikTok and everything.
Yeah. So eventually he's just going to run out of. I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to have to stand on a street corner in New York with a megaphone, and he can yell insults about us.
Honestly, man.
He's
get my name out in New York.
That's right.
I could sit here all day long and tell you people that I'm a badass from New York, and I am afraid of no man.
Yeah, he's afraid of no man. So
if you're not afraid of no man, why would you call the police?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, and I'm not saying that in a bad way.
So we'll see. But Christian, I mean, on the one hand, I understand what you're saying. You don't want to put any more time into this guy. But at the same time, if Dirk Don is able to set this up, are you not intrigued? I'm intrigued.
I'll be intrigued. I'll just think it's ridiculous because he pulls views. I've seen his YouTube channel. He pulls views.
Oh, Dirk, yeah.
My question is this: and with all due respect to this man, because once again, he's a YouTube creator, and you know how much I support YouTube creators like that.
Yep.
Why are you putting your time and day into someone who's not going to contribute anything?
Well,
contribute, not contribute. Contribute.
You put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. That's okay. But what is that from? That's from a movie. I wish I could say I made that up, but I didn't. Yeah. Well, the thing is, the videos that Dirk made about Crazy Joe have gotten a lot of views. People are people are interested. I don't
Like,
know.
are we talking 1.2K or are we talking?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head, but Arrogant Media has thousands of subscribers at this point.
Oh yeah,
so,
I've seen their channel. I've
Yeah.
looked at. I've shared out their videos. I've sent them to my friends.
Yeah.
Especially the Chris Chan video. That was hilarious.
I was not aware, by the way. I had heard the name, but I was not aware of Chris Chan prior to all of this. How is he known?
Me neither. That's why I think
Oh.
it's even more funny. Imagine getting famous for
No, but he
that.
was already well known. That's why this is a story, right? What?
Sort of, yeah.
But I don't know where he's from or anything. Like, I know nothing about the guy, and then I see this story, and I don't want to get into that on this show. But anyway, yeah, the Chris Chan thing is odd. Dirk in the chat says, hell yes, thank you for checking out the Chris Chan video, Christian. I'm going to have to check that out,
Of
too,
course.
because I want to learn and be illuminated about this Chris Chan
I guess
character.
my advice, creator to creator, is honestly, don't just let it go, because it's not going to benefit you in the long run. He doesn't pull views, and at this point you got to be all about the numbers. Yeah, what he's doing is messed up, but like, it's going to come to a quit once we stop giving him attention.
Well,
He's like a little baby. The more attention he gets, the more he keeps acting out.
This is the thing, though, Christian, and this is what I've said all along about Crazy Joe. I think there's something everyone gets wrong. I don't think it's that he craves attention. I think what he really wants, it's not the attention. I mean, that becomes part and parcel to what he really wants, but what he really wants is to be taken seriously. The one thing that none of us will ever give him. It's not the attention.
No,
he wants to be taken seriously.
Especially after what he's done.
Yes. Right.
My straw that broke the camel's back is when I'm sitting in work and I get a phone call from the New York Ridge Valley Police Department, dude.
Yes.
Right. It's like, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was like, oh, so now this guy wants to cry wolf?
That's what they do in New York when you're a real New Yorker. You call the police when someone's mean to you, apparently.
Yeah. He also told the police he was a comedian.
I know.
I think that's the funniest joke he's ever said.
It says that right on his website, too.
A true New Yorker like me, I don't need nobody to back me up.
That's right, except the police.
Except the detective that gave me a call.
Right. Yes. Well,
This is between men.
there you go.
Dude, I keep hearing everything he says, and it cracks me up. It does.
Well, I know. Well,
Now you tell your people what a bad guy I am, okay? Please. I insist.
Well, virtual Crazy Joe, of course, isn't on any of these social media platforms, so he manages to survive. But actual Crazy
Yeah, he's
Joe.
exclusive.
Yeah.
He's exclusive to Matt Connarton Unleashed.
That's right.
But, some people said that Matt's show is boring.
That's true. Some people said that. Some people say I don't talk about politics anymore. I realize I'm not talking about politics right now. But I say everything is political, including discussions about Crazy Joe, because then we get into discussions about deplatforming and what is and is not racist and political correctness and so forth. So I say it's all political.
You can segue into political.
But I received an email from someone today, Christian, and no, it's not either of the two individuals you're thinking of when I say this. I received an email from someone who's very disappointed that I don't talk about politics anymore, even though I come in here and talk about politics every day.
First off, with all due respect, who in 2021 uses email?
What do you mean? Who uses email?
Who uses email to communicate like that?
Lots of people.
But that could also be my millennial at rear end.
I think so. Yeah, email is still.
I'm gonna take that one back.
Yeah, email is still very much a thing. I'd file that the same place you file your pronunciation of the word contribute, or however you said it.
Hey man, listen, I'm having a hard time Englishing today. Okay.
Maybe you have adult onset dyslexia.
Probably.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But yeah, no, I just want to put my 2 cents in on that.
Okay.
On the Crazy Joe situation, man.
Well, I'm sure.
'Cause I don't want.
I'm
Go
sure.
ahead.
I'm sure Dirk appreciates the feedback. As you know, he did put that post up asking people what they felt about it.
Yeah, and then I tuned into your show and I heard it. I was like, oh, wait a minute. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna head out and go back to work.
Well, all right, Christian. Thank you for the call. I will see you later. Do you have anything to plug as far as DJ Reckless at the moment? Do you have anything?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay.
Working on a few projects for September.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Yep.
All right. Well, I will. I'll see you later. Literally.
Of course. Literally. I'll be at your house.
Yes. All right, Christian. Thank you for the call.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Christian LaCoss, also known as DJ Reckless. That opens up the line for you, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. You can also text me at 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. Yes, people do use email. Or you can, of course, interact and opine in the Facebook live chat. But the best thing to do, give me a call at 603-250-6007. Jenny is in the chat room and says, Shalom, peeps. Scott Robinson is in the chat. And Scott is, I was talking earlier about people complaining when we do things other than politics. Scott said, I hope these people are not referring to the entertainment report with multiple exclamation points. Scott Robinson, a very big fan of EZG's entertainment report. I think we all are to some degree or another, but I love EZG's entertainment report. I enjoy it very much. One of the highlights of the week. Charles Richardson joins us in the chat. Charles, of course, from the Charles Richardson Show, which you can hear every Wednesday and Friday night from 7 to 9 p.m. And we have another call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, Matt. This is your good friend Dirk.
Hi, Dirk.
Look, man, I got to be straightforward with you for this question.
Yes.
Why aren't you talking about politics anymore?
I know, it's crazy, right?
Ever since I discovered your show just a couple months ago, I've been listening to your show for years.
Yes.
and you talked about politics for years, but you just stopped all of a sudden with this Crazy Joe malarkey and all this entertainment crap. And look, man, I just want the politics back. Can you bring that back, please?
I'm gonna work on that, Dirk. You and several other people are just. Well, it's interesting, and I will very shortly share the email that I received today from a listener. People just, I guess, unless I do politics all the time, they think that I never talk about it. It's very strange.
Let's be real here, okay? If you don't talk about politics, I'll have to do a video about you now, and then
I would love that.
You'll be threatening me for suing me, okay? All right, and I don't want to go down that path.
Well, although we could do something, you make a video about me and then I threaten to sue you, and then we could have like an on-air confrontation about it, and Crazy Joe could be the moderator.
Can we yell at each other?
Yeah, or speak loudly at least. Yeah. It'd be great.
Perfect.
Be great.
That's great. Okay. All right, I'll let you go. Back to your show. Please talk about politics in your email. If the email doesn't contain politics, I'm making a video. All right.
All right. You got a deal.
All right. Love you, Matt. Take care.
Thanks, Dirk. You too. Bye-bye. All right. That was Dirk Don from Arrogant Media. Make sure you subscribe to the Arrogant Media YouTube channel. Dirk does a fantastic job, and I'm definitely going to watch that Chris Chan video that Christian had mentioned too, because I want to learn. I want to learn more about that. Let's see. Miriam Banish is a top fan. Did I mention Miriam? Oh, already? I think I did, or maybe not. Miriam says, definition of character makes me laugh every time. Yes, definition of character. That's what Crazy Joe threatens to sue everyone for. But Miriam also said, I'm bored with Crazy Joe. Well, Miriam, you sound conflicted. On the one hand, you say you're bored with Crazy Joe, but then you say a definition of character makes you laugh every time. I think you're a little conflicted there, but aren't we all? I mean, Crazy Joe, he causes all these different feelings. Tom Blanchard says he could write you a letter. Crazy Joe could write me a letter, yes. Rocky Uber joins us in the chat. Rocky says we need Easy G to start a new scandal. Oh, he has so many. Oh, Miriam says derogatory. Yes, that's how Crazy Joe pronounces. That's how Crazy Joe pronounces the word derogatory. And, oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, and I'm not saying that in a bad way.
Sorry, I was just waiting for virtual Crazy Joe to chime in. Dirk in the chat, by the way, said, Christian, we put our time into it because it's entertaining. Oh, Miriam says, my son used to rant about Chris Chan, but no idea why. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't really aware of this individual. I feel like I had heard the name, but until this, boy, talk about a scandal, that guy. Nemi Jones is in the chat room. Hi, Nemi. Nemi says, my mom used to say emphasis on the wrong syllable. It was in a Mike Myers flick, but it's been around for a long time. Yeah, I can't remember where I heard that originally. It might have been in a Mike Myers movie. Dirk says, we do this with Crazy Joe for the same reason we do it about Chris Chan, for a good story. Nemi said in all caps, yes, Matt, you got it. And I'm not even sure exactly what Nemi was saying that about, but it was in all caps. So I appreciate the affirmation very much. Miriam says, what did the police say was the reason for calling Christian? Yeah, Crazy Joe had gone to the police to complain about Christian. I don't even remember why. It was very strange. Miriam says, I like the variety of topics. Thank you, Miriam. Alex Whiteley joins us in the chat room. Hello, Alex, all the way from the UK. Miriam says, I've never been so interested in politics in the past, but feel like I get some good info from the show. Well, thank you, Miriam. I appreciate that. Some people are disappointed, don't feel that the show provides good info about politics, but I'm glad that you do. Alex Whiteley says, spoke to Carol Baskin in my latest interview, and wow, it's divided people. If you could speak to anyone that is surrounded by controversy, who would you speak to? Oh, there's a lot of people. You know, I would speak to, I don't know if I would say almost anybody, but there's a lot of people I would speak to just because I think it would be, there's a lot of political people I would speak to, but you know, I have certain triggers too, where I don't want to talk to people. For example, like when someone, like I lost a friendship recently because I had a friend who called and, you know, started talking about COVID-19 as just being a quote unquote, a cold. You know, and that offends me when people downplay this terrible virus or talk about it like it's a hoax. So I don't know. That's a good question, Alex. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I'll think on that, and I'll maybe later in the show I'll think of someone specific I would really like to, or maybe on tomorrow's show. Jenny says, I say thee nay, you must keep talking about my biggest fan, referring to Crazy Joe. Tom Blanchard says it's no fun anymore since Trump is gone. Well, that's interesting you say that, Tom, because there's a reference to that in the email I'm going to share with you. Mike Pelopita, who is a top fan, says, good afternoon, everyone. Mike, of course, from another one of our wonderful sponsors here at WMNH 95.3, Queen City Cabinetry in the historic Sunbeam Mall. Eric Street says, email is definitely still a thing. I know some people who mail thank you notes. Oh, let's see. Miriam says, referring to Crazy Joe, if his whole shtick was butchering the English language, I would be less bored. It's the long racist rants that get old, LOL. Nemi says, my all caps was, his motivation, Crazy Joe screams to be heard. Yes. So I'll share with you the email, Crazy Joe's motivation. You know, it's like I was saying, you know, yeah, Crazy Joe, it's not, It's not that, like I said, it's not that he wants the attention. Because sometimes he gets mad at the attention if he doesn't feel the attention is the attention he wants. What he wants is to be taken seriously. So, it's a little more nuanced. But all right, so I received an email, and I actually responded to it. I received an email from our friend, Mike Doyle. And I say, by the way, when I say our friend, I mean that. I like Mike Doyle tremendously, and I do consider him a friend. We disagree on some things politically. Mike is very fond of Trump, for example. I am not. But I think Mike and I are pretty respectful of each other. We've had some great discussions on the show when Mike calls in, and we even had one show, and I'm certainly open to doing it again if he ever wants to. We had one show. This was, of course, pre-pandemic, where Mike came in and sat with me for the full 2 hours, and we had a great discussion. I prefer that, actually, in-person discussions, particularly when it comes to things where we disagree. But Mike sent me an email that I just was a bit baffled by, so much so that I took the time to respond to it. Because usually he sends me these emails for the show, and I don't respond directly. I respond on the show. And I might, just respond to what he says or what he expresses, or if he shares an interesting article, I might read the article on the air and then talk about that or whatever it is, right? So I don't usually bother to write back to him, not because I'm ignoring him, quite the opposite. I wait and respond on the show. But this is what he wrote in his email. He said, "Hi, Matt. I've noticed you're vacating of talking national politics now that you don't have Trump to kick around." So right away, so we're gonna take this a chunk at a time. So right away, so I'm reading this and I'm like, well, that's absurd. And I did use that word when I responded to him. I said, since Biden was inaugurated, we have continued to talk about politics. Now, do we take, as I mentioned earlier, do we take side streets and alleys and go to, and get into other stuff? Yeah, of course we do. We just spent some time talking about Crazy Joe and the challenge that Dirk Don laid out for Crazy Joe and what he wants to do and have a moderator and all that, right? But most of the show is spent talking about politics. It is a political talk show. Yes, we do other things, but the nucleus of the show is a political talk show. So right away, I'm like, what is he talking about? And by the way, this especially doesn't make sense coming from Mike Doyle, since sometimes we'll be having a political discussion on the show, and Mike Doyle will call into the show during the political discussion, which I appreciate, right? But he'll call to give his opinion on whatever it is that we're discussing. So, Mike, if you're listening, how is it that you're able to call in and contribute to a political discussion that you're claiming in this email doesn't actually happen because I don't talk about politics anymore? This makes no sense. This makes no sense. But I think I understand the psychology here, because Mike has something in common with a couple of other guys, and I'm not going to say their names. I told a mutual friend of ours that I would lay off, and I'm going to keep my word on that. And the reason I'm laying off is because one of them had some apparently pretty intense difficulty that I was not aware of. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll lay off. I don't need to talk about those guys ever again, whatever. But these guys did an entire hour-long episode of their podcast where all they did was dump on me. Well, they did. I think the previous one was only 30 minutes, but the most recent one, they did an entire hour of their podcast talking about me, talking about what a terrible person I am, but also talking about how awful the show is, how much they hate my show now. Why? Because according to them, I don't do politics anymore. The show was great in 2020 because in 2020, we would discuss politics on the show. But in 2021, all of a sudden, I stopped talking about politics and we don't do politics anymore. That's the whole gripe. I mean, there's other sub-gripes within that. There's other things on their list of grievances. But that seems to be the number one thing. Oh, Matt Connarton Unleashed. It used to be about politics. Now it's about all this other stuff. The show's changed. It's completely changed. And I'll tell you how their complaint relates to Mike's complaint in a moment. You may have already figured out the through line here. But I think I understand the psychology of what happens. It actually played out with these other guys because one of them called the show one day. This actually happened. One of them calls the show at the top of the hour, right at 5 o'clock as we're getting into the second hour of the show, and confronts me with this. Matt, you know my problem with your show? You used to talk about politics and now you never do. And I said to him, I spent the entire first hour of the show talking about several different political issues. And he goes, oh, well, I didn't hear the first hour. And I'm like, yeah, right, I know. Here's the psychology of it. And caller, please hold on. I do have a call. I'll take this in a second. Here's what I think is the psychology of it. People tune in occasionally, and then because a lot of people think that whatever they see in front of them, that's all there is to the world, and they don't realize that other things go on outside of their consciousness, they can't quite realize that. I think what happens is somebody listens to the show occasionally, and they hear something like, say, Easy G's Entertainment Report, and they go, oh, I guess this is what the show is now. There's no more politics on the show, even though that is the main thing that we discuss is national politics. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, it's Charles Richardson.
Hey, Charles. How are you, my friend?
Doing pretty good. The reason why I'm chiming in because you and I both know about the same person that I know, and but
yes,
here's the thing: talk shows can evolve, and just because you may be a politics show or talk about politics one year, next year it may not be that way, or you may be diverted to other things. It's all about keeping your listeners.
Sure.
And, sometimes listeners are just like, okay, well, maybe we're strung out on politics or we're just not into it anymore. So you basically keep the show interesting with what is breaking.
Mm-hmm.
You know something? Let's take a look back 10, 15, 20 years ago. What was the Howard Stern show all about? Strippers and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Now what is it all about? It's good interviews. It's
mm-hmm.
good content, prank calls.
Yeah.
It shows evolve.
Right.
And you don't like it, you know what? Go do your own show.
Right.
Go talk politics on your own show. Go, podcast it up, baby.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that's particularly baffling, though, in this case, Charles, and I agree with you, the shows evolve, they change over time, but the thing that I find particularly baffling about the people who complain about this show, like the two guys, and you know one of them, the one I was talking about who called that day, and this email that I get from Mike, which really shocked me. The thing is, my show has really kind of been what it's always been. It's always been a political talk show, but with a lot of other stuff mixed in, comedy and music, and it's always been kind of a mix. So when people talk about the show, I honestly, I don't think my show has evolved. I mean, hopefully it's evolved in terms of quality as I've gotten better at this and more comfortable with it and whatnot. But as far as the content, it's always been a mix of stuff, So I don't even know why anyone is so mad that the show has changed.
You know what? And by the way, I didn't know there was a rule against somebody calling in with a political topic they want to talk about and having your input on it. I mean,
right.
Am I missing something? You control the topics only. Nobody else can call in and voice their thoughts on, oh, yeah, you hear what Biden did, or did you hear what Pelosi did, or, who's that person underneath Biden's desk this time around? I mean, nobody can go ahead and call you about a topic that you may have heard about?
That's a great point, Charles. I'm glad that you said that, because you're right. Anybody is free. I work without a net. I don't have a call screener. I take calls from anybody, and I'm very open to discussing whatever the caller wants to talk about. And if a caller calls and wants to have a political discussion, our new friend Brandon from Portland called recently, and I think we talked about politics on the show for like 45 minutes. Because he kept bringing up different things and asking different questions, and I was happy to engage in the dialogue. So you're right. I mean, a lot of it is driven by the callers, and if somebody's frustrated that I'm not talking about politics, they can always pick up the phone and call the show and say, "Hey, Matt, can we talk about this political issue?" And I'm happy to do it, because I do like to keep it fairly loose and freewheeling.
Yeah. Yeah, but you see, Matt, you never mentioned the phone number. You never mentioned anything. Because remember, I only listen for 5 minutes out of the show, so I don't hear the phone number.
Do you think I'm right, though, about that?
You get that. You get that dig, though, right?
Oh, I do, absolutely. So, do you agree with me that that's what happens? Like people who listen to the show occasionally, because they don't realize that there's more than just what they see right in front of them. They think, "Oh, this is the show," and then they assume that that's all that happens on the show, even when they're not listening.
They got to realize there's 2 hours of content.
Yeah.
And you could go through 10 topics in 2 hours, or you can go through one.
Right.
You could have a Crazy Joe show for 2 hours, or you could go through, what's going on with COVID for 2 hours. But there also could be times where you're keeping it moving. There's an email that you got, and then we're going to talk about what's going on with the senator race, or it just, like, I mean, come on, folks, you don't know what's going to happen if you don't listen to it. Like, that one particular person, I wasn't listening the first hour. Well, there you go.
Right,
you can't go ahead and call BS on a show because they're not talking about it if you're not listening to it 24/7.
Exactly. And then he goes and does a 1-hour podcast with another guy, and it's all about, the show's completely changed and he never does politics anymore. It's like,
well, I'll tell you something, Matt. I still learn a lot from your show.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
very educated every time I listen to your show. So you know what?
You.
Maybe they need to learn a couple of things too.
Maybe. Charles, I appreciate that very much. That means a lot to me, my friend. It really does.
You got it. Take care. Have a good show.
All right, brother. Thank you. Take care. That's a very nice thing for Charles to say. Charles is someone I really respect as a broadcaster. He does the Charles Richardson show. It's a great show. Charles is very good at what he does. So that was very kind. Oh, I thought we had another call, but they are not there. Melanie in the chat says, "Please, no 2-hour show about Crazy Joe." I think along the way we maybe have done a 2-hour show about Crazy Joe. But hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hello.
Hello?
Oh, hi, Matt.
Yes.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, my phone was being weird. I wanted to call in. I had some cool news I wanted to let you know about.
Who is this?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm losing you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Who is this? Who is this on the line? The voice is familiar.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't really hear your voice, actually. Maybe should I just try to call back?
Try calling back.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I don't know who that was, but it was a very familiar voice. Very familiar, but a terrible phone connection, unfortunately. But whoever it is, they have some cool news. Let's see. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. This is Will. I'm back again.
Oh,
and I can hear better now. So,
yes, me too.
Yeah, I wanted to let you know that you're actually in a neat video game that's coming out tomorrow.
I'm in a video game that's coming out tomorrow?
Yeah. There's a game. It's like a really nice game, but it's a surprise game that kind of like takes place all throughout like Massachusetts. But then at some point, the player goes into New Hampshire and is listening to your radio station or listening to your show. And so like there's there's no audio from it. It just says like, "Hi, it's Matt Connarton," and then like it cuts to like in and out of some dialogue because the radio cuts off of it. But but yeah, but I can't say what the game is yet. But it comes out tomorrow.
Okay.
And it's like it's a pretty big game, so it's cool.
Well, so it comes out tomorrow. How will we know where to find it?
I can send it to you tomorrow.
Please.
Or actually, I'll privately send you the link tonight too. Or today. So.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem.
Okay.
Cool. Keep up. Awesome show. And just want to let you know.
Okay. All right. Wow. Great. All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Cool.
All right.
See ya.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, that's awfully damn intriguing. Okay. Interesting. Wow. All right. I'm very intrigued by this. All righty. Wow. Well, we're having a... Sorry to anyone who might be listening who's upset we're not talking enough about politics, but, but this has been... Eric Street in the chat says, I want the video game too. Dirk Don says, yeah, why don't we ever get the phone number every day, Matt? Jenny says it's akin to sour grape babies. By the way, the phone number is 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. But yeah, I'm glad Charles brought that up because, if you want me to talk about a specific political issue, you can always call in. Unless we're doing a specific segment, like, for example, on Tuesdays in the second hour, in the 5 o'clock hour, we do our Tweakonomics segment with our friend Mike Sutterth, who I have been getting a ton of positive feedback on that. People really like it, and I think we all learn a lot from it. But unless we're doing something specific like a segment like that, or I'm interviewing someone about something specific, if it's kind of like today where I'm here by myself, and yes, I have some things, some specific things that we may or may not get to, I do keep it very loose and freewheeling on the show because I want to... I like the audience to have some buy-in. I like the audience to be able to interact, and if someone wants to get into something specific, or either by calling, or if someone raises something in the chat room, that we can talk about and explore. I like to do that. So I'm glad Charles brought that up because, yeah, it is kind of weird that anyone would complain about, oh, Matt's not talking enough about something, where, you can always take the initiative to raise the issue yourself. We're already at the top of the hour, but I want to get through this email that I got from Mike, and then I'll share my response because, again, I just was baffled by this. Here, I'll start from the beginning. So he said, hey, Matt, because we didn't get very far. Hey, Matt, I notice you're vacating of talking national politics now that you don't have Trump to kick around. This is the only standard to avoid the national left biased media, which will never comment on the early failures of the Biden-Harris administration. Now, let me stop again. If you're someone who actually listens to the show on a consistent basis, you know my feelings already. Yes, I voted for Joe Biden. Yes, I thought Trump was awful. But my position is that I believe that in a truly healthy political culture, and this is how I approach it, if you support a particular candidate, if you vote for a particular candidate and they get in, yes, of course, when they do things that you like, celebrate their successes and support them on the things that you agree with. Like, for example, I give the Biden administration very high marks on the rollout of the vaccines. I think they've done a phenomenal job with that and making sure the vaccines are available. But other things like, for example, last week, the end of last week, I think it was Friday, it might have been Thursday or Friday, I was talking about how we currently have 16,000 migrant children in detention at the border, and the Biden administration has failed spectacularly to get their arms around the situation, and I don't sense that they have any plan to deal with it, and I don't see any progress on it, and I find that unacceptable and inexcusable. But here's the thing, no matter, and we know this from Mike's calls, not just the email, but from Mike's calls, it doesn't matter how many times I criticize the Biden administration, all he hears is, oh, Matt hates Trump and Matt loves Biden, which is not true, I mean, look, in large measure, I voted for Biden because I was voting against Trump, because I thought a tomato can would do a better job than Donald Trump did as president, okay, especially in the pandemic. But I've said all along, and in my view, I mean, you as listeners, hold me accountable. I appreciate the feedback, even when I don't agree with it. I actually appreciate Mike's email, even though I think it's absurd. I always appreciate feedback, good or bad, positive, negative, constructive, deconstructive, or destructive, whatever, or deconstructive. I always appreciate the feedback, but I have made a commitment all along to hold Biden to the same standards to which I held Trump. When I agree with something, when I like something, when I appreciate something, I will say so. Unfortunately, Trump didn't give me a lot of opportunities to do that. But when he did, he'd get something right here and there, like, for example, signing the First Step Act, a step towards some meaningful criminal justice reform. I applauded that. Absolutely. I said, great job. That's a great thing. But same standard. When you do something I like, I'm going to speak up and say it because I believe in positive reinforcement. But when I see stuff going on I don't like, I'm going to call you out on it, especially if I supported you. Because my opinion is, in a truly healthy political culture, if you support someone and they win, you celebrate their successes and the things you like, but you also should be the first to hold them accountable when you see things going on that you don't like because you voted for them, because you are in part responsible for them being elected. And that's how I feel about Joe Biden. When I see things I like, vaccine rollout, A+, absolutely. Fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic. 16,000 migrant children currently in cages and nobody knows what's going on. And whistleblowers are going to the media and saying, we got a real problem here and they're not figuring it out. And we've got COVID-19 spreading among these children and nobody's even making them put on a damn mask, let alone figuring out how to solve this. I got a real problem with that. And I come in here and I am the first to say it, because I voted for him. So I'm going to be the first to speak up and say, this is screwed up and they need to figure it out. I'm not going to be the last. I'm going to be the first to hold him accountable, because to me, my vote is sacred. I know that sounds corny to some people, but not to me. If I trust you with my vote, if I entrust you with that, I'm going to be the first to hold you accountable. And I know there's nothing I can say that will ever make Mike Doyle say, Matt, you're right. I appreciate that you hold. I mean, he says other superlatives, like he'll say great show, great discussion, whatever, but he'll never say, Matt, you're right. I see where you do hold the Biden administration accountable, because he can't see it. He can't see it. All he sees is, oh, Matt hates Trump. Therefore, by default, he loves Biden. He's never going to criticize Biden, no matter how many times I come on this show and criticize Biden, which I do a lot. But if you only listen occasionally, like I said, some people, they'll tune in occasionally, and whatever they happen to hear in that moment, they think that's all there is to the show, because they forget that there's a world outside of what's right in front of them. It's just how a lot of people think, somebody who only hears EZG's entertainment report, for example, if they happen to tune in on a Thursday, they then go, oh, Matt doesn't talk about politics anymore. He's doing this funny thing with EZG. Oh, the show's completely changed. The show used to be something completely different, and now it's this other thing, and I'm all mad about it. Anyway, so the email goes on. Mike writes, thought I might help you with a few items that you may be missing. And then he goes on to list 5 things. Now, again, I appreciate the email and I appreciate the suggestions of topics, but he goes on to list 5 things, all of which we've talked about on the show. None of these things are things that we've ignored. Would you like to know what they are? Number one, the complete disaster at the southern border, including the latest information that the people coming across are from countries around the world and not just the South American Triangle countries. We've talked about the border. I talked about it expansively. I think it was toward the end of last week, might have been Friday. Number two, the drug cartels. Complete exploitation of the border. We've talked about, and the record amount of fentanyl now getting into the country and into our younger generation. We talked about that last week. I think we talked about it on Monday of last week. We got into that. Number three, inflation continues to soar, and there is no sign of letting up. Inflation, definitely. We talked about that last week. I remember specifically discussing inflation on the show. Number four, gas prices moving in only one direction. I believe that was part of our inflation discussion last week, or one of them. I think it came up more than once. Number five, crime out of control. Haven't heard much of a plan. Violence, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we've definitely talked about the rise in violent crime. This is all stuff we've talked about. So I took the rare step of actually writing back to Mike. And I never do. I always just respond to his emails on the show. But I wrote back. I said, Mike, no offense, but this is absurd. We talk about politics all the time. It's literally a political talk show. We've talked about all of these issues and will continue to do so. I assume you only listen occasionally, and when you hear something like Eric Gagnon's entertainment report, you then assume that's all we do now. I always appreciate feedback, but this is just bizarre. I'll be talking about politics today, by the way. Feel free to tune in. So, there you go. I don't know. I thought you might all get a kick out of that. All right, we are past the top of the hour. Let's take a break. Going to play a little music. We're going to play our commercial spots so we can show some love to our sponsors and pay the bills. By the way, I see Braden Russell in the Facebook live chat. Hello. And, yeah, I hope no one, I hope Mike doesn't mind. We're going to play a little music and play some commercials. And, don't worry. We'll get into some politics afterward. But, we do need to take a break. And, I hope nobody in, Pennsylvania or Idaho or whatever minds that we, put aside the politics for a minute, but anyway. All right, we'll be back. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away. We're live.
You talk to me. Look, you might be right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We are well into hour number 2, numero dos of Matt Connarton Unleashed. And we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you are in Manchester, streaming at WMNHradio.org and on the Facebook on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Today is Monday, August 2nd, 2021. And, of course, you can also go to my website, mattconnerton.com, for all of your live streaming options, social media links, contact info, etc. And, of course, we are proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan right across the street. Don't go there today. They are closed Monday and Tuesday. It's their weekend, but they'll be open Wednesday. They have delicious gourmet pretzels. They have craft beer. They have live entertainment. Thursday nights, the great Bill Cini hosts trivia night there. Friday nights, our friend Grant Lampton performs live there, 7 to 9 p.m. Great place and such a wonderful family that does own and operate it. And so we're very honored and privileged to have that association and have them as sponsors of this program and of this station. So The number to call is 603-250-6007. 603-250-6007. I just received a nice message about the video game and the trailer for it. So if I sound a little distracted, I'm just really anxious to take a look at that. I can't share it out, but I was asked not to, but I'm really anxious to look at that after the show. It's just wild. It's just such an unexpected but very, very cool surprise. Apparently this is legitimate. They found me through Not Even a Show, hosted by the great Chris James. So very nice, very nice. But anyway, yeah, give us a call, 603-250-6007. You can also text me at 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. And, of course, you can always interact and opine in the Facebook live chat, but the best thing to do, give us a call at 603-250-6007. There's a story that I've been meaning to get to on the show, and it's especially relevant now because of the eviction moratorium has expired. There was always a little bit of a legal question about Charles Richardson from the Charles Richardson Show says, make sure you call the number and talk about those political views that never get mentioned. There's always been a little bit of a legal question about the CDC being able to... Alex Whiteley says, can I come on sometime to talk about Pod Aid? Yeah, anytime you want, Alex. You can even do it today if you want. I can open up the Skype. Here, I'll open up. I don't know if you're available now. I've got Skype open for you. Feel free to Skype in, or anyone else who has our Skype ID who wants to join me. But there was always some question about whether the CDC had the authority to enforce that and continue to extend the evictions moratorium. And obviously the evictions moratorium, a result of, so many people who suddenly found themselves displaced. I mean, when the moratorium, and this was, of course, during the Trump administration, initially, when the moratorium was first enacted, it was because all these people suddenly found themselves out of work, and you don't want them on the street because it's, through no fault of their own that they've been displaced, whether they've been, their businesses have been temporarily closed because of the restrictions, or, you don't want people thrown out on the street and then crammed into shelters of some kind, right, during a pandemic. So the government decided that they were not going to allow landlords to evict anybody. Oh, Andrew Joseph Reed Downs McCann Brown is in the chat room and says, hello from Tomorrow Radio in Ireland. Oh, we've got Ireland tuning in. Yes. And I believe Charles Richardson's show, which is syndicated to a number of online stations, including, of course, he's on Raw Talk Online, obviously, and IPM Nation, but he's also on Tomorrow Radio. So hello, Andrew Joseph Reed Downs McCann Brown. So the moratorium on evictions has expired, but there's all this rental assistance available that no one's been able to actually get access to. So I wanted to touch on that in a moment, but we have a call. Let's grab this. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's Ridley.
Oh, Dave Ridley. How are you?
Good. You?
Good. What's up?
Good.
Good.
I have some news.
Okay. News?
And related to fallout from the January 6th protests in D.C.
Oh, yes. We've actually, by the way, Dave, we have listeners who might not know this, but we've actually discussed that quite a bit on the show, January 6th. But yes, please, what is the news that you have?
Yeah, so a New Hampshire man has pleaded guilty in federal court.
I saw that.
To a misdemeanor. According to, have you already reported on this?
No. I was just saying, I don't think we discussed him specifically on this show yet. I was chuckling because I watched I know who the guys are talking about, although his name escapes me. And I saw a little interview clip with him, and he seems like a kind of a goofball. No offense if he's someone you know personally and like, but go ahead, Dave.
No, I don't know who he is. I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be put in jail for being a goofball. The Thomas Gallagher is his name.
Mm-hmm.
What they did put him in jail for is also a little bit concerning. This all could have been worse. They could have treated him worse. But so he was charged with, according to the Union Leader article, quote, he was charged with, quote, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building, unquote.
Yeah. Well, didn't he go in there? He went into somebody's office, from what I saw, and he went into one of the offices there at the Capitol, and I don't know if they identified whose office it was, and he grabbed a bottle of wine. I guess it was sitting on somebody's desk or in a cabinet, and started chugging the wine, and he thought that was a cool and fun thing to do. And hey, if you're looking for sympathy from me for any of these people, you're not gonna find it here. But if you wanted,
you don't need to have sympathy for the person charged. It's like H.L. Mencken said, you have to raise questions about what they do to the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do that, they'll eventually do it to you. Basically,
fair.
I know that's not the exact quote, but
no, that's fair, perfectly fair.
Yeah, so these things should be scrutinized, even if we don't automatically come to the conclusion that the federal government is behaving in a fascistic manner. It doesn't always do that.
I agree.
But to me, I mean, the fact that it's even a crime to parade, demonstrate, or picket in the building you paid for should be a source of concern.
That's where we disagree. That was no. What happened on January 6th is not okay. I understand the argument. We pay for that with our tax dollars. But that was not okay. That was violence. And
Well, he wasn't. That's the thing is he may have stolen some wine. He was not violent, and the federal court documents say that. And yet he does say 6 months in prison. Would you say that that's proportional in a free society?
I'd have to look closer at it, Dave. I have a hard time. Boy, it's going to be hard to get me to feel any kind of concern or sympathy for any of these people. I understand the point that you're making.
Any of them? All what? How many thousands of them were there? Some of them just standing around on sidewalks. Are you angry at them too?
That's not what I'm saying, Dave. I'm talking about the people who stormed the Capitol, and he was one of them. He was in one of the offices chugging a bottle of wine. He wasn't standing on a sidewalk.
Okay, yeah, fair enough in his case. But you sounded like you were condemning the whole lot.
No.
That's the danger.
No, you're putting words in my mouth. That's no, absolutely not. I'm not condemning the whole lot. I'm condemning the people who stormed the Capitol. You know, the people who are storming the Capitol, beating up police while they pretend to back the blue. The people who were chanting "Hang Mike Pence." The people who were talking about murdering Nancy Pelosi. You know, the people who are breaking everything. You know, that we pay for with our tax dollars, and they're vandalizing everything. Those people, what was it? Something like 150 officers injured that day. Few of them killed. I think there was at least one who committed suicide after the fact. You know, the people who did all that, that's what I'm talking about, Dave. And that guy was in that crowd because he was in somebody's office chugging wine. So 6 months in prison, you know what? I'm at this moment, maybe I'll reflect on it later. Maybe I'll feel differently. At this moment, I'm not feeling terribly empathetic. I'm actually okay with it.
Well, if that's the maximum. So he might not give him 6 months. If they give him 1 month, then I'll start thinking, okay, maybe there's not a witch hunt underway after all. But on the other hand, Ron Paul is claiming that they are keeping a bunch of people. They're still holding a bunch of people after this, like some of them in solitary. Is that true? Do you know anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about this. So,
this may have been a month-old podcast. I was just listening to it yesterday. I don't remember the date of the podcast. They may be out by now. But again, we want to be alert for any sort of overreaction to anything on the part of the federal government. I don't care how politically incorrect it is.
Yes. Well, I agree with you. We do have to be alert to overreactions. We also have to be alert in these times to underreactions, because we have two major parties in this country, and one of the two major parties is trying to spin the narrative that what happened on January 6th was actually just a bunch of tourists being very kind, being very loving, to use Trump's word, being very orderly, treating everyone with respect. And of course, anyone with any cognitive skills or critical thinking abilities can see that that the narrative of one of the two major parties is completely false. So we also have to be careful about overreacting. We also have to be careful about underreacting, because Republicans want this all to just, oh yeah, no big deal. It was I was watching it live on television as it was happening. It was a damn big deal. And
yeah, most of what I've seen, I watched the full Turkish TV documentary about it, which seemed pretty fair, and they showed a lot of the misbehavior on both sides.
On both sides. What's the other side? What do you mean on both sides?
Well, for instance, while they were interviewing somebody, I guess it was the day after the riot, they were interviewing somebody who was a Trump supporter, and a guy who doesn't like Trump came up and spit in his face and told him he had Kubit. They did that right on the camera. So,
I didn't.
That's the other side doing something questionable.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to, the other side. I mean, that's one guy doing that, but that one guy who did that is a scumbag. I didn't know about that. But I was talking about specifically what happened on January 6th. I mean, that's
Yeah. And it's appropriate, and it's important not to blame the whole side for what that one guy did, just as it's appropriate not to blame everyone who was at these protests for what the people who were inside did. And not all the people inside did the same thing. For instance, Gallagher, according to this Union Leader article, the court documents said that he was trying to stop people from doing violent stuff. It says there's a video where he, quote, appeared to admonish another rioter not to throw a chair, unquote. That's according to court documents.
What a hero. Wow, I had no idea. Was that before or after?
Well, again, he doesn't have to be a hero for me to not have to pay to lock him up.
Yeah. Was that before or after he chugged the bottle of wine? Maybe he needed to kind of loosen himself up a little bit before he had the liquid courage. He had to drink the wine, so he had the courage to go up to the guy with the chair and ask him not to throw it. Otherwise he'd be a little too inhibited to approach any of these people. Yeah. I take your point, Dave, and I do think it's important to examine these things and make sure that the state doesn't get too out of control with their punishments and do things that are inappropriate as far as that. But I also think it's important to make sure that people are punished for the violence that they committed on that day. And I believe that every single person who entered that Capitol building, whether they committed actual violence or they were just kind of there with everybody else committing actual violence, every single person who entered the Capitol, they knew they weren't supposed to be doing that. They knew they weren't supposed to be in there, and they all...
Wait, why? Why aren't you supposed to be in the building that you paid for?
Because, Dave, look at how they were entering the building. They were entering the building forcefully. Look, I don't have a right...
All of them? All of them? Was this guy?
I assume. How else did he get in? Did he...
he may have just walked in through a door that someone opened, because some of the doors just got opened for people. I think the Capitol Police let people in some parts of it.
Well, of course, I'm sure there's some Capitol Police who were Trump supporters and they were sympathetic to the cause. I have no doubt about that. But there's also some Capitol Police, for example, one being crushed to death in a door. I think you know better. Are you really going to make excuses for these people, Dave? I think I mean, how foolish do you have to be going, oh, look, all these people they're breaking everything. They're beating up police. But as long as I just walk in and don't actually do anything myself while all this is going on, I'm fine. I'm not doing anything wrong. Come on.
Yeah, being in a federal building should never be a crime.
When that's happening, I disagree. I think everyone who entered that building with that crowd should be held accountable. They knew they weren't supposed to be doing that, and they shouldn't have been doing that. Look, I mean...
Yeah, the idea that the claiming you're not supposed to be doing something, that's not enough. A person, for them to suffer at the hands of a jail sentence or something like that, they need to commit an act of aggression themselves or order someone else to do it.
We're going to have to, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, Dave. I'm not going to make any excuses for any of the people who entered the Capitol on that day.
And I'm not going to make any excuses for the federal government that runs torture camps.
All right. Anything else on your mind, Dave?
That is all.
All right. You want to give the Ridley Report a plug?
RidleyReport.com. I don't run any torture camps.
That's good. Well, neither do I, Dave. Nor do I encourage that or condone it. But
well, in fairness to the people who don't like Trump, he was the first president to actually advocate the use of torture against American enemies.
True.
So, that's again, it's a muddled, ugly pond over there, and both sides are ugly. All sides over there seem to be kind of ugly.
Well,
and it is an empire. It is an empire this state should not be part of.
Yeah, well, I agree. All sides are ugly in their own ways. That's for sure. All right, Dave. Thank you for the call.
You're welcome for the call.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Like I said, I take Dave's point about how we do need to, you always want to be vigilant about how the federal government metes out punishment. For example, that's why I oppose capital punishment, because sometimes the state gets it wrong and it's far too large a risk to be taken with human life, because far too often the government gets it wrong. So I agree with Dave's point about making sure that they're not overreacting. But like I said, we have two major parties, and one of them, not all, but many of them in one of the two major parties wants us to underreact and just kind of pretend, what happened January 6th, no big deal. And, we can all just go about our business, and that's not okay either. And I do stand by what I said. Every single person who entered the Capitol. I mean, if we're going to go with, I understand what Dave's saying. Oh, well, your tax dollars pay for that building. Therefore, you should have a right to be in there whenever you want to. This is one of those things where, and it's kind of one of the things that put me off a little bit about libertarianism, even though I do have some strong libertarian impulses, sort of left libertarian. But, there are some things in this world that just sound great in principle, but don't work practically. And I've always tried to kind of define myself as what I call a non-ideological, practical pragmatist. I think it's great to have principles, but it's not a perfect world. And so sometimes you have to, you have to kind of not put aside, but you have to kind of put practicality ahead of principles. In principle, Dave is right. We pay for that with our tax dollars. We should be able to be in there anytime we want. But in a practical sense, I think Dave's wrong. Because if we're going to go by, and caller, I'll pick you up in a second, but if we're going to go by everything on principle, then, okay, should I be able to just charge into Governor Sununu's office anytime I want to? Here in New Hampshire, our governor's office, just because, my tax dollars help pay for that? In principle, yes, my tax dollars contribute to that. But is that practical? Absolutely not. It would be, then, just anybody could walk in there. Somebody with a weapon could, there's all kinds of practical issues around that. So sometimes principle and practical collide. And I think when they do, more often than not, practical has to win. Otherwise, we can't function in this world, Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. It's Karen. How are you?
Good, Karen. How are you?
I'm doing well. I just have something to add as far as January 6th. And yes, all the arguments that, the Capitol belongs to the people, our taxpayer, tax money pays for everything. Everybody has to remember that we were in a pandemic. In January, the Capitol was closed to everybody, all visitors. It was closed except private tours by congressmen and senators' offices.
Yes.
It was not open for anything.
Great point. Yeah, great point. Now Dave's Dave's counter argument, not to speak for him, but his counter argument, knowing kind of where he comes from, his point of view is he would probably say, well, that doesn't matter because, and again, he would default to his point that our tax dollars pay for that. So regardless of what's happening, you should have the right to be in there, which again, in principle, fine. But in a practical sense, I think he's wrong. And I think the point that you raised, Karen, is excellent. It was a pandemic. Well, it still is a pandemic, but obviously the pandemic was still very much underway. I mean, we didn't, I don't know. Did we even have anyone vaccinated at that point? And
not at that point, no.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that had to have been a super spreader event. I don't know if anyone's figured out how many cases may have come from that. But all those people rioting together, I mean, I'm sure they were spreading. And by the way, of course, it's, it's the MAGA cult. So, nobody there was wearing a face mask, I'm sure, hardly anybody. And I'm sure it's, it was most of the people in the crowd, probably people who weren't taking COVID seriously at all, probably thought it was a hoax or whatever. So I'm sure they were spreading it around. But yeah, I mean, it was an extraordinary time. And I think that's a great point, Karen. I mean, obviously what happened that day was important to begin with, but that it happened during a pandemic just makes it even worse.
Right, exactly. And like I said, I know that's people's argument. It's their house and they should be able to get into it. And I'm not saying that might not have been true if it wasn't the pandemic. That might have been a possible argument. But the Capitol, the White House, all of the federal buildings were closed to the public.
Right.
So, to say that you had the right to be there, no, you didn't.
Right.
On that particular day, you had no right to be there.
Right.
And that's why they're saying that some of the Republican senators and congressmen probably gave tours, because that was the only way you could get into the Capitol building during the pandemic, with private tours sponsored by senators and congressmen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's something to think about, because that's what they're going. I'm not saying any of them did, but that's the only way people could get into it. And on the 6th, there were no private tours scheduled. None of them can say, oh, we were invited in for a private tour. Not by what we saw happening.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So,
I just wanted to say that, and I don't feel bad for any of them. I mean, yes, people that weren't in the Capitol, that were on the grounds and that were there just for the rally, good for them. They did what they wanted to do. They stayed away from. But anybody that entered that building, I don't feel sorry for any of them for anything that they get. That's just me.
Yep, 100%. Nope, me too. If anyone who entered that building, there's no excuse, and whatever befalls them is what happens, according to the justice system. So, I mean, they're not going to find all of those people, obviously, and we're talking about thousands of people. But yep,
right.
I don't have any sympathy for them at all either. I'm with you.
All right. Well, you have a great evening, and I love your show, even if you don't talk about politics 100% of the time.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that very much, my friend. Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye. All right, a great call from our friend Karen. Very, very nice. And a great point that she raised. Absolutely. In the chat room, Alex Whiteley says, I won't have time tonight as work is busy, maybe later in the week. Okay, so great. So we'll have Alex on later in the week, most likely. Excellent. And Tom Blanchard is in the chat room, and Tom says, Ridley, you're wrong again, with multiple exclamation points. Yes, 100%. Well, we've got a little bit of time left. Let me give the numbers. 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. You can also text us at 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton, or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. I keep looking to see if our friend Mike Doyle responded to my response to his email. And, of course, you can comment in the chat room on the Facebook, but the best thing to do is give us a call at 603-250-6007. So just to kind of again, we don't have a lot of time to get too deep into this, but, as I was mentioning earlier, Tom says, I wondered what would happen if that were to happen in Russia or Iraq, what happened on January 6th. Yeah, you'd see people gunned down with machine guns in Russia, no doubt. So the evictions moratorium has expired. And so there's a concern now that nationally you're going to see this wave of evictions. And I believe the number that I keep seeing is approximately 11 million families in the United States are at risk. And by the way, just as a side note, I know, we have a lot of listeners online on various platforms from all over the country, but I assume that, the bulk of our listeners are right here in New Hampshire, people listening in their cars and whatnot during their afternoon commute. I just want to say, some people, when they hear about this or they read about it, they say, well, I don't think things are too bad. It doesn't seem like things are too bad. I don't know anyone who's in danger of losing their home. But keep in mind, too, if you're in New Hampshire, this state has a tendency in both good times and bad, or a history, I should say. In good times and bad, the economic climate here in New Hampshire tends to be pretty stable. We usually have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. And while housing is an issue here, affordable housing is an issue here like it is everywhere, we tend to weather the storm economically when there is a storm to weather better than most of the rest of the country. So again, I'm talking about the picture nationally. Maybe things seem okay here, although I'm sure, you may not know anyone who's at risk, or you might know several people who are at risk. But I just like to remind people too, if you are here in New Hampshire, don't take it for granted that things are as good throughout the rest of the country as they are here. Trust me. Things are usually better here than they are in the rest of the country. So however bad things are here, they're worse everywhere else. Just kind of think of it that way. So the evictions moratorium has ended. Nancy Pelosi, House Leader Nancy Pelosi, kind of surprisingly seemed to, maybe not so much overtly, but sort of implicitly threw the White House under the bus a little bit. I think she would have liked to have seen an executive order from the president. Biden didn't do that. Congress didn't do that. Didn't pass anything in time. And the CDC didn't extend it. And again, there was always that legal question about, does the CDC really have the authority to do this? So that's it. That's it for the evictions moratorium. But the interesting part of the story is, and this is from the website publicintegrity.org. And this actually goes back, this article here is about a month old, but it's relevant now. This goes back to June 29th, but it's relevant now. More than $425 million promised for rental assistance didn't make it to their tenants or landlords. The reason I bring this up, and this is what is so baffling about all of this and so frustrating about all of this, aside from the obvious that there's, like I said, 11 million families at risk of being homeless during a pandemic, because this pandemic is not over thanks to the unvaccinated. It should not have come to this. There is money set aside for rental assistance. And apparently, last I knew, and again, this article might have some different numbers because this is about a month old, but it's the best explainer of this situation that I could find online, so that's why I went with this. Only about 6%, think about this, 6% of the money allocated, which would help renters and landlords, only 6% of that money actually went out the door and got to who it was supposed to get to. So, I mean, in theory, if they could have done this right, and I don't understand what went wrong here. aside from maybe, sometimes the government screws things up, as we all know, or, the gears of government grind too slowly, or there's inefficiencies. I don't know exactly what happened here. And I want to look at this article, and maybe we can figure it out in the little bit of time we have left. But in theory, if they had managed to do this right, the renters assistance, maybe they wouldn't have even had to have the evictions moratorium to begin with. Maybe they could have just made sure that, or maybe, well, maybe they should have still had the moratorium, but with the caveat being, to avoid being evicted, you have to apply for this rental assistance. And then if you fail to apply, then the landlord still has the legal remedy of proceeding with eviction, but you have to go online and apply for this. So you have to have some buy-in. You have to ask for the help, and then we'll give you the help. And then that way you get the money and you can pay your landlord, and your landlord can pay their mortgage, and so on, right? But somehow that didn't happen. So this is from publicintegrity.org, which is a great website. It says here, some states failed to get their pandemic aid to renters promptly. Some spent it on other things, and some never set up an assistance program in the first place. This is sounding somewhat like the Affordable Care Act with the, well, anyway. Says here, before the pandemic hit, Jacqueline Bartley, a mother of 2 girls and a boy, had a comfortable life. Then the 41-year-old lost her job at American Airlines, quickly spent her savings, and found herself months behind on the $1,300 a month home she rented. Until then, she had never missed a rent payment. Bartley of Durham, North Carolina, turned to the state's rental assistance program and was relieved in January to be awarded $8,100. But she says her landlord refused the money after she rejected his request to amend her 2-year lease to a shorter period. The program required landlords to honor leases, among other conditions, to get the money. She turned to a second program launched this month by the state and again was approved. She recently learned that the landlord had accepted nearly $20,000 for back rent and several months of prospective rent. He has agreed to dismiss the eviction lawsuit he'd filed. The news means she won't be forced from her home after the federal eviction moratorium ends, but the waiting and uncertainty meant months of stress. Millions have found themselves in situations similar to Bartley's, facing possible eviction despite promises by governors to help renters, after Congress passed the sweeping CARES Act in March of 2020. So, just so we're clear, this renter's insurance, which again benefits not only the renters, but the landlords and the banks that hold the mortgages for the landlords, et cetera, right? This was all part of the CARES Act. So it says here, nationwide, state leaders set aside at least $2.6 billion to prop up struggling renters. But a year later, more than $425 million of that, or 16%, hadn't made it into the pockets of tenants or their landlords, according to an investigation by the Center for Public Integrity. The federal government had an eviction moratorium in place for the majority of 2020 and the first half of 2021, but landlords across the country have found creative ways around it. People in communities of color have been far more likely to receive eviction notices during the pandemic than people in white neighborhoods, according to analysis by the Public Integrity of Eviction Data. By Public Integrity of Eviction Data in 2020. Now we're running out of time. I'm going to skip down here. I'm going to skip way down. Faced with a housing crisis that could have been worse than the foreclosure flood of the 07 to 09 Great Recession, Congress sent billions of dollars to states and some local governments with the 2020 CARES Act, but it didn't mandate that the money be spent on rental assistance, leaving it to states to create their own programs and set the rules. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition's database of rent relief programs in 2020, Georgia, West Virginia, and Tennessee, all run by Republican governors, chose not to set up statewide rent relief programs in 2020, despite having higher than average historical eviction rates. Alabama, whose historic eviction rate was not as high, also did not administer a statewide relief program in 2020. South Carolina allocated less than $14 per renter-occupied household that year. Oh, my God. Georgia's Department of Community Affairs tried to set up a rental assistance program with funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the fall of 2020, but when it became clear that a separate, larger tranche of money would be coming from the U.S. Department of Treasury in 2021, the program stalled. I'm kind of skipping down again. Anyway, well, it gets... All right, I'm going to skip way down because we're almost out of time. Among the biggest challenges was states' failure to spend what they had allocated. The Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency received $150 million to help renters, but returned about $96 million to the state treasury, which plugged holes in the state's public safety budget. Florida spent 60% and Montana less than 20%. Before each sent back the rest to their treasuries. New York reported allocating just under half. All right, so we don't need to go through the whole thing because we are almost out of time, and I think I shared this out to the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. But the point that we can take from this is the federal government included this in the CARES Act to help people. And if it had been administered properly, we wouldn't have 11 million families now at risk in this country because the evictions moratorium has expired. And in parts of the country, COVID is raging out of control. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Florida's having a terrible time. 1 in 5 new cases is in Florida. Ron DeSantis, the governor, of course, who, wants to be Trump's vice president in 2024, I think. I think we can safely assume that. He's out there saying, well, you got to stop hectoring people about getting vaccinated if you want people to get vaccinated. He continues to, he's always kind of downplayed the virus, and he says things like, we're not going to have shutdowns and we're not going to have mask mandates and this and that, and he continues to behave as though the virus is something that is a threat to the liberty and freedom of Floridians instead of treating it like a public health crisis. I understand why he does that, because the base of the party loves that kind of thing. And even though you have people getting sick and dying, younger and younger people now with this Delta variant actually getting sick and dying, the unvaccinated, of course, it doesn't matter because the base of the party is far less concerned with people getting sick and dying than they are about, not having to put on a mask when they walk into Home Depot. So it's a very weird dynamic, but I think in the state of Florida, this Delta variant spreading like wildfire as it is throughout the country, but particularly in Florida, where, like I said, 1 in 5 new cases in the entire country is in Florida, it doesn't hurt him. It doesn't hurt him politically. Because the base of the party is fine with it as long as there's no mask mandates, there's no mitigation efforts, whatever. They're completely fine with it. Just a couple quick Facebook chat comments, and then we have to wrap up. Tom Blanchard said, this is going back to Dave Ridley's call. He was complaining about a guy from New Hampshire getting 6 months in jail for storming the Capitol on January 6th, breaking into an office. Yeah. And Nemi had said, was Ridley here? Opens a window. I like Dave Ridley, but we don't agree on some things. And by the way, we do agree on some things, but we definitely don't agree on some things. All right, we do need to begin to wrap up. Thank you all so much. It's been a great Monday afternoon here. I hope we did enough. Hope we did enough politics to make everyone happy again. Still just absolutely gobsmacked by that email that I got. Mike Pelopita says, have a great night, everyone. Thank you, Mike. Mike, of course, from Queen City Cabinetry, one of our great sponsors here at WMNH. And don't forget, not today because Monday and Tuesday is their weekend, but when they're open on Wednesday, make sure you visit the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan right across the street. And if you missed any part of today's show, it'll be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org. And make sure you check back in tomorrow. Tomorrow, in the second half of the show, in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by the great Mike Sutterth for his Tweakonomics segment. And we always look forward to that. And that's going to do it for me for now. I will talk at y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.